That all is well. All is well.
All right, everybody. This is Relationship Thursday. Whether you are in the Blamily or you're watching us on Zoom, what's happening? Welcome. We are glad you are here for another Relationship Thursday. We are in the house, and I just want to first start by saying, "What's up, boo baby?" Oh, I ain't got my mic.
You need to get your mic, Shorty.
Do I have to come in and wave my suit though?
You can work it out though. I mean, figure it out. Get your mic. Yeah, go ahead and get it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? All
Ain't
right.
cut me no slack. Jeez.
Nah, you don't have to have it as close though, but you still should probably get it. So, again, what's up, good people? Welcome to Relationship Thursday. I am doing. Feeling motivated. Feeling motivated.
That's been your word just about every day.
Yeah, well, today we're doing the M word inside of the King Me Intensive, and so that's one of the words that I picked out. I'm feeling motivated, motivated based off of the movement that I'm seeing in the fellas that I'm working with, the movement that I'm seeing in my marriage, and
Movement in your marriage.
my merge, and all that good stuff. So the movement in me, that's what I'm excited about. So. Yeah, we here, y'all. We here, and again, we hoping that y'all experiencing that good stuff too. So,
All right, y'all. If you're joining us tonight, we are talking about 5 ways past trauma messes up marriages. Yes, we are. And let me tell you something. Sometimes it takes a session like this, a conversation like this, for you to be able to see yourself or even see your partner a little more clearly. And the goal is not for anybody to feel no type of way, but the goal is just simply for us to get a little more insight, a little more clarity, so that we can actually, you know what I'm saying, do a little better.
yeah,
We can actually be a little more intentional. And we can actually stop putting stuff off on everybody else other than who it need to be on, which is us. Because when you get grown, you can have some past trauma, you can have some things that are going on, but when you know better, you really should do better. There's a whole lot of us that know better, but we don't do better.
we don't. We be
We
stuck.
don't do better.
We be stuck, and a part of that stuckness is sometimes because we feel as though to even get into that stuff, and dig deep and implement some of the things that we know, it's going to require us to work. That's fine right there, man. It's going to require us to work to really create a shift and to do something that's different. And when we are trying to level up and stuff like that, it just don't feel good all the time. So it comes with the territory, and a lot of times we're resisting that. And so some of y'all may be actively in that space right now where you're resisting, some changes and things that are happening in your life. And I just want to say, stay the course. Stay the course. I just posted recently inside of our King Me Intensive. How to deal with, or just some concrete strategies for dealing with temptation. And I did that because I know that as we're going through this experience, that you're going to encounter triggers, and as a result, you may be tempted to backslide. You may be tempted to deviate off the path. You may be tempted to do something that you ain't supposed to be doing. And so I was actually tempted myself to do something that I committed to not doing, getting the energy drink. I was tempted. Yeah, I really was. But I was tempted based off of the stress. And so that's why I'm lifting this up, that again, once you put yourself in position to do some things, to experience growth, you're basically putting yourself in the crosshairs of discomfort. And as a result, like, how are you going to deal with that? And so it's a normal part of the process. And again, I just encourage folks to stay the course. Stay the course. Be honest about where you are, how you feel. And don't hide from those emotions, but embrace them, and then navigate through them. And when you have the support of a community, that's always more better. So again, that's what we about.
Yes. Oh, that soup is good. Okay, now y'all, that is a perfect segue to the first thing I want to lift up tonight. Again, whether you're watching this live or on replay, we're talking about 5 ways that past trauma messes up marriages. And I think, was it last Relationship Thursday, or I don't remember what we were talking about.
5 things to destroy
Connection or
Yeah.
something, right? So the piece that's important here is I think it was unresolved issues. Last time we were talking about unresolved issues, and today we're talking about trauma. So those things kind of overlap. Here's the thing: you can keep ignoring, avoiding, or maybe conveniently kind of sitting in state of blissful ignorance about a thing, you know, and how you be and how you be acting, how you be being, and that kind of thing. But it's going to come to get you in some way, shape, or form. So one of the things that I want to lift up first and foremost, Aize, is one of the ways that trauma, past trauma, messes up marriages is that it creates inside of people avoidance behavior. Avoidance behavior. We avoid things. We avoid certain conversations. We avoid talking about certain things that might remind you of your trauma, or certain ways that your wife be talking, remind you of your mama. You know, it can just create a lot of significant challenges for people when, especially when you like on autopilot and you just trying to avoid. How many people have tried to talk about some things and your partner is avoiding, they're avoiding, or they've just flat out told you, I'm not going there. We're not doing that. I'm not doing that. And for many people, you actually think that you're doing a relationship a favor because you say, I'm not doing that because I'm not trying to have that drama. I'm not going to go there with you. But the reality, y'all, is that for real, like real marriages have messy moments and have moments where we need to go there. It doesn't mean that we need to blow up and go off, but sometimes it might look a little messy. Sometimes it's like that. And you're not doing the relationship or yourself a favor by saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not disturbing my peace. I hear some people say that I'm gonna keep my peace, but sometimes you need to get into it and stop avoiding the conversations or stop avoiding what your partner is saying. Like, why you be doing that? Like, I don't appreciate that. Or I know you saying that's not what you meant, but this is what you keep doing. Why? Stop avoiding avoidance behavior. Past trauma is directly connected, unresolved past trauma is directly connected to avoidance behavior because we don't want to feel those feelings. We don't want to deal with those triggers. We don't want to be uncomfortable in that way. And that's reasonable. But what's not reasonable is once you start to get aware of that, it's just to kind of stay in that place and not recognize like, dang. So I do be kind of getting triggered. So like, what am I gonna do about that? Because I can't just like dip out and not, be around for like 24 hours every time I feel this feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not going to work. Like, I know I've been doing that, but I guess that's not reasonable. So what can I do to replace that? What can I do, you know what I'm saying, to make sure that I'm actually paying attention to not just how I feel, but how I'm impacting the people around me. So avoidance behavior, if you're an avoider, you ain't got to raise your hand. You just be like, all right, don't try to avoid what I'm saying right now either. Just try to move on to the next thing. It's something that we got to pay attention to. That's one way that past trauma messes up marriages because it creates more isolation. It leads to a lot of distance in marriages because when somebody feels left out or pushed out or ignored or what have you, and you're just trying to protect yourself, but meanwhile you isolating your partner and you're not making things better. So that is number one. That's mine. You're avoiding trauma. I'm saying I'm avoiding trauma. You're avoiding issues because of your past trauma.
Yeah, that's good, baby. Another one that is, really stands out to me is emotional dysregulation. And so you can encounter a traumatic experience when you're a child, or even as an adult, and instinctively you're going to make a decision to fight, freeze, flee, or even fawn. And so you have all of these different options that are proposed to you or that come up inside of you. And so you make a decision to move in a different direction or in a direction based off of your psycho-emotional makeup. And so sometimes what this does, y'all, is it causes this emotional instability, this volatility, where you find yourself sometimes exploding at the drop of a dime. And you don't even know where it came from. And so, whether that's based off of the experience that you had in childhood, you witnessing domestic abuse between your parents, or you experiencing it yourself, having to protect yourself and constantly trying to find ways to navigate situations and move in a way so that you can minimize the pain that you might have possibly experienced. And so you're on this roller coaster ride and you're being yo-yoed back and forth based off of somebody else's emotions, based off of somebody else's mental and emotional state. And so you're trying to govern yourself based off of them. You're trying to move and protect yourself based off of them. And so as a result, you come equipped with this skill to go back and forth and fluctuate in your emotions, but sometimes it's not under your control. A lot of times you're just moving and responding, actually reacting to situations because you're trying to protect yourself. And this volatility causes an immense amount of stress and an immense amount strain on you individually, but also in a relationship. And so when you find yourself in spaces where there's this emotional dysregulation, like you got pop off Pete, pop off Patty, like at the drop of a dime, like just ready to go. And it could be sometimes over the most benign stuff, but what we don't do is sometimes connect the dots where what you may consider to be something that's not so significant, it's actually triggering or kicking up something inside of them that occurred a long, long, long time ago, and they're not even in touch with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be mindful. So if you find yourself in a space where your spouse has said to you, you want something else.
Vladimir, Popo.
You want something else, and you know it needs to be checked, or you out of control, and you're having an impact on the family. That needs to be paid attention to. You need to get some additional support because again, it could be a trauma response, a trauma reaction, and you really haven't resolved or dealt with what it is that you know happened in the past. And some of y'all are dealing with traumas that y'all are dealing with that y'all are experiencing today. You know, abusive situations.
Yeah.
Whether it be mental, emotional, physical abuse. Like you're in spaces like that. And so you're constantly being subjected to trauma. Even the loss of a loved one in a, you know, in a extreme fashion, or even just period. It can be a traumatic experience. And so we're encountering it and we're faced with it on a regular basis. And so it's important that you have the support to be able to process through and grow, you know, grow through it. So as my wife chews her food,
Why you ain't say a few more words so I can finish chewing?
I had to give you some more seconds.
So, all right, y'all, we talking about trauma and how it messes up marriages. A lot of marriages, y'all, a lot of people, we always say there aren't really a whole lot of marriage problems. There may not be any. There's just personal problems that we have that affect our marriage. And if you have married someone who has a fear of abandonment, bless you. Bless your soul. Because I usually married somebody who had a fear of abandonment. And people with fear of abandonment, oh my goodness, we can be real special. So it can even look like being very clingy and very suspicious acting behavior in the, you know, not suspicious acting behavior, being suspicious of your partner, being clingy, needing to be affirmed all the time, not being sure of yourself and, you know, questioning your partner and that kind of thing. It can also, on the other side of the coin, it can look like, you know, not really being vulnerable, pushing your partner away, doing things to sabotage the relationship. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. And when we don't resolve that past trauma, you know, mine had to do with my daddy and all that, you know, broken daddy daughter issues, kind of stuff that we had going on. But it could be anything. When we don't deal with that stuff, then it comes up in our marriages. You have to pay the price for that, and then you had to pay the price for that.
I did.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Was you mad about it?
Was I mad about it?
I just want to know how you felt about it.
I wouldn't say that I was mad about it. I didn't understand it. So we were so young. And so,
Yeah, I didn't understand it.
yeah, I didn't understand it. And this whole idea of therapy and all of that, like it was foreign to me. And so, why you keep on like raising it? I'm about to be out the screen in a second. You keep on raising the camera.
No, what took over that way like that? I'm trying to when I go down like this to eat off the screen, not have my.
Why don't you just stop eating?
Food
How about
coming
that?
all in my mouth on the screen.
Why don't you just stop
I'm
eating?
almost done. No,
Like we had a whole podcast episode about
Lord.
eating. Y'all could probably hear the spoon hitting the corners of the bowl right
it's
now.
good. It's good too.
I'm just saying, Joe. Like, I lost my train of thought. Even this food, this goddamn food.
You said you didn't understand it. We were talking
Yeah, I
about
didn't.
some of my abandonment stuff.
I didn't understand it, and so you know, when I got more hip to it and more exposed, I was able to connect the dots, and even still, at the same time too, I was like, you need to fix that shit. You need to figure it out and fix it. Does it have to be that hard? Does it have to be that complicated? You know, if you have trust issues and you have somebody available, that is demonstrating that they're going to be here for you, like why isn't that enough to fix it? And so Yeah, so even in terms of like abandonment issues and
That's
that,
good right
so you
there.
can have abandonment issues, y'all, and push people away. Some of y'all might be like, so how can you have abandonment issues but then push people away? But you have abandonment issues and fear of abandonment, and so you decide that I'm not going on an unconscious level. I'm not going to even be in relationship with anybody to actually be abandoned.
Yeah, I'll just roll out on you before you roll out on me, even if
Hmm.
it's just emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What's
Hmm.
something you just said? Oh, Aisha just said, why isn't what you say? You said something like, why isn't your love or why isn't me being there good enough?
Yeah.
And I think that's really big, y'all, because we could be talking about um, fear of abandonment or any kind of issue. You know, sometimes as partners, we think like, I got you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm covering you. I'm here for you. But the thing that I think we all need to remember, and if you didn't already know it, you need to kind of integrate into your awareness.
I'm sorry.
Just playing. You opening up drinks and cans, you be getting on me. So the thing we need to remember, y'all, is that your love is not good enough. Mm, 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 mm.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is that as much as Ayize has loved me, and his love has helped to heal me, for sure, 100%. Um, if I didn't have the wherewithal, the curiosity, the desire to be different, to change, you know what I'm saying? If I didn't have that on my own, it would not be good enough. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be good enough. So you gotta you can't make somebody change. That show did make more noise than a spoon. It show did. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Y'all hating.
So so yeah, so again, we're talking about ways that past trauma messes up marriages and the work that we all have to do. We talked about avoidance and avoiding the conversations, avoiding the things because of past trauma. It reminds us of reminds us of something that has happened in the past. So we avoid the difficult things. We say we're not going there, all of that, and you're just stunting your growth.
Hmm.
You talked about, what was the second one you talked about?
Emotional dysregulation.
Emotional dysregulation, just jumping off, just popping off. And a lot of times it's not just popping off, it's also shutting down. Shutting down is just the other side of the coin. Because you're feeling very emotional, you shut it down versus respond in a way where you pop off. Either way, it's an emotional reaction, right? And so we gotta start to get in charge of that. Y'all, that right there, if there was one thing that I had to pick, if there was one thing I had to pick in terms of the issues that we see and some of the most persistent things that we see, um, man, I would say emotional regulation definitely at the top of the list. I'm talking about in marriages.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Learning how to deal with our feelings. I
Yeah.
mean, that would really solve or open up the doorway to going down the lane of solving so many issues. Because if I can regulate myself and not let my anger take over, that then makes me shut down, or let my hurt take over, that then makes me pop off, right? Like that can, or just whatever, like that takes care of so much. Because then
Hmm.
we can get into the actual stuff. But a lot of times people can't get into stuff because our emotions are all over the place, and we have no way of knowing how to let them up, let them out, let them settle down. Now I'm feeling a little more grounded. Let me talk to you. Well, we don't even know nothing about that. We just be
Yeah.
responding all crazily to our
Hmm.
stuff. So that's three. We're moving on to number four now of five ways that past trauma messes up marriages.
So number four, y'all, trust issues.
Why you got me all on the screen?
Hmm?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. You did that again.
I didn't even touch the screen.
Oh, okay, my bad.
What are you talking
All right,
about?
I'll be right back. Go on, do number four.
Number four, y'all, trust issues. Um, so for those folks who are trauma survivors, then you find yourself in a space where you're actually having difficulty opening up and letting other folks in. And so this can manifest in a myriad of ways. My wife, she mentioned the whole piece around dealing with abandonment issues and not necessarily opening up and letting me in. I've seen a number of situations in which dudes like are reluctant to be vulnerable, to share their emotions, and then some folks, in many environments, find themselves being trauma survivors just simply because the area that they grew up in, like the neighborhood was off the charts, and it was like on and popping, and so you got to be in a self protective mode all day, every day. And as a result, like you're surviving through trauma. And it's kind of hard to trust in spaces like that. And so you'll find yourself moving in different areas, constantly looking over your shoulder, questioning people's motives, intents. And it's just a hard way to live. We had a conversation with somebody recently, and what they shared was that she didn't realize it was a sister. It was a couple that we spoke with, and the sister was sharing that she didn't realize how much suppressed trauma, pent up trauma, and pain that she had until she traveled to Ghana. And she shared that when she traveled to Ghana, she realized that I don't have to look over my shoulder in the same way that I looked over my shoulder back where I grew up from. I don't have to question people's motives in the same way
Oh,
that I
right.
question people's motives, in the area where I grew up from. Everybody looked like us, and on top of that too, the energy was different. So I'm elevating that piece right there because again, we can experience environmental trauma just based off of the neighborhoods that we grew up in, and so you want to pay attention to that. And so it's kind of hard to let your guard down when you feel like being on guard is a coping mechanism for survival. You need to be on guard to ensure that you're protecting you, you're protecting your family. And so many of us, are walking around just not trusting. And so that also pertains to intimate partner relationships. If you were in a relationship before where there was some type of infidelity or some type of abuse or somebody just ghosted you or whatever the issue may have been, you start to develop this wall and there's this resistance and as a result, you find yourself not trusting in your next relationship, or even in the relationship that you're currently in. And so, trauma definitely has a way of manifesting where you just shut down and it's a brick wall right here. I ain't letting nobody else in, and
Mm-hmm.
that's unhealthy,
Mm-hmm. That's
and
good.
it will mess up your marriage.
It will mess up your marriage. All right, y'all. The fifth one, y'all should already know. It's that big old B word. That B word always come up. Every sister circle we have inside the Blamely, we be like, dang, every time, everything we talk about, some way, somehow, it leads back to this B word, and that is difficulty in setting boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Man, some of us had some of the best childhood experiences of, let's say, for example, our mothers, our grandmothers, or family coming together, hanging out, having a good time, doing all the things. And when we think about those things, we think about those times with fondness. But what we didn't always know sometimes is that our mothers, grandmothers, and whomever, I'm just talking from a woman's perspective, they was bending over backwards, trying to make things work, working themselves to the bone, dead dog tired, not
Mm,
asking for help, and not asking their husband to help them, your daddy, whoever, right? Like just not getting any support. And they never showed you, they never said in front of you, no, that won't work for me.
mm.
Uh, 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 um.
Because it worked for them.
That won't work for me. Nobody said in front of them that won't work for me. No, that's not gonna work. No, I'm sorry. I don't need. That's not gonna work for me. We ain't never even seen anybody do that. So while we have, so that's the thing that makes setting boundaries so difficult. I think for so many people is that we have good feel good experiences and things that we remember and ways of being attached to people and our families and our parents and our past relationships or what have you, and yet some of that stuff shouldn't have went down the way it went down because somebody needed to set a boundary and ask for what they need. And so now as you're an adult, now as we're all moving about in our lives, somewhere somehow we need to have said, no, that's not going to work for me. Oh, that's too much. But we're attached to the idea of what we think something's supposed to be, how it's supposed to look, how it should be, what I'm supposed to do, and how we want things to come across or whatever. But we got to detach from those things, y'all. We got to start setting boundaries, and it can be very difficult. And when we have experienced trauma and poor modeling of setting boundaries, in addition to that, then we don't oftentimes know where we end and others begin.
Mm.
Da, 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 da. We don't know where we end and others begin. I want you, if you don't think about anything else between now and the next time we come together, where do you begin and end? I don't care how much you love your husband and how much you would lay down your life for your children. Do you have a beginning and an end? Are there things that they just have to, my husband got to do what he got to do for himself, because I can't do that for him. That's between him and God. And there are things that I have to work on, and there are things that my children are going to have to discover on their own. But there's a beginning and ending to me. I can't live for everybody, and I can't be available to everyone, and I cannot be open to everything, because then there will be no me left. And so many of us are walking around with no more of us left, a shell of ourselves, no boundaries, unhappy, in sad places, and we think it's the marriage. But it's the past trauma, it's the past stuff messing up our marriage. And as soon as we get right, things start getting right around us. Our vibration starts to rise. We start getting more people around us in our lives that elevate us. We start getting other couples that elevate us. We start getting environments and access to things that we did not have before. Everything around us is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. Everything. Everything. And that's not just about your physical environment. It's about how you perceive it and how you interact with it and what you do with it. You know what I'm saying? So we got to pay attention to setting boundaries in 2024 and beyond. Every daggone day of our lives, sometimes for many of us, is a battle to set boundaries. And we got to start patting ourselves on the back when we do it too. Set a boundary and then go celebrate.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, have you all noticed, if you've noticed that trauma has impacted your marriage, type a one in the chat. Type a one in the chat if you've noticed that trauma has impacted your marriage. And if somebody that's a part of the Blamley wants to come forward and share how, then raise your hand. And I would be curious to know, just how has it impacted your marriage? Again, you can come forward and share. And have you all seen? This is how trauma is generational, y'all. Have you all seen? Has anybody seen how that trauma has been passed down or passed on to their children? And so even if you don't want to look at your children, think about your grandparents and then you. Have you seen it passed down from one generation to the next? Type a two in the chat. If you've seen it passed down from one generation to the next. Type a two in the chat if you've seen it passed down.
Indeed.
If you recognize that it's been passed down from one generation to the next, the question then becomes, are you going to stop it? Is the buck going to stop with you? Is the buck going to stop with you? And if the answer is yes, type it stops with me, or type a three in the chat. Type a three in the chat. If you are recognizing that it's a generational thing, and it's time to stop that. Type of three in the chat, and I'm glad that I'm seeing the threes come through.
Yeah.
Because there's ownership there, there's acknowledgement, and with that, there should also be a commitment to do the work. And so, I just want to say, I commend all of the folks that have the courage to face it, to look at it, and to confront it, and say, not on my watch. I'm gonna do something different. And so that's the reason why we do the work that we do, so that we can change how generations that come behind us show up. We want to impact our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and our children. And so a lot of times when people think about legacy, it's often viewed through the perspective of wealth and passing down monetary value from generation to generation to generation to generation. But what about emotional value? Passing that back, emotional wealth, from generation to generation to generation. And so again, we got to be intentional about doing the work, y'all. And when we are, we'll have that type of ripple effect where we'll feel more empowered versus disempowered in terms of how we relate to one another.
Yes, that's good. That was a word,
Oh yeah.
Pastor. That was a word. That was a word for us. Yes, he agreeing with me. He said the church, the doors of the church about to be open. Everybody, this has been another good Relationship Thursday, right? Hopefully you got something to think about, to marinate on. Hopefully many of you feel encouraged in some way, because you know that some of the things that we talked about, you're like, yeah, I can see that for me. I can see that in some of my ways or some of the historical things I've been through. But I also also see progress for myself. You know, and that's all it's always about, y'all. It's not about perfection. It's just about progress. So all of y'all who are real hard on yourselves, just know that everybody's tired of you being hard on yourself. That's number one. So when you hard on yourself, that means you hard on other people too. And so you can't be hard on yourself and not hard on other people. And other people don't feel like hearing all of that. So stop being hard on yourself. Relax. Give yourself credit for what you're doing, and then you'll also be able to give out that same peaceful energy to the ones around you. So we can break these generational traumas. We can take advantage of our generational gifts, because there are generational gifts that we have access to, not just traumas and curses and so forth. And it really makes sense to pay attention to those. And so we'll be talking about that in the future, the very, very real close future. I'm trying to think of the word. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
So everybody, be easy. Have a good rest of your Thursday evening. And we will see you on the next situation.